So you have 1 minute. Make sure you're following the instructions on the do now. And it very clearly says that the only thing you need is your Green Revolution documents. So I'm going to give you 1 minute to make sure that's the only thing you have on your desk, as well as the paper that you picked up. The only thing you need is your Green Revolution documents and this paper. See me during lunch. We'll see. Only thing you need right now is Green Revolution documents and this. No, like the documents. Oh, okay, you can have the soapstone charter out if you want. Only thing, guys, the only thing you need is your Green Revolution documents and the paper you picked up. So let's get these books off the desk. Ashley, this is all you need. Let's get the other stuff off your desk. Christian, let's get the folder off the desk. All you need is these two things. I want to make sure you have enough space. All right. So that was 1 minute. Let's make sure all the other things that we have are off our desk. And we have in front of us our Green Revolution documents. And we also have in front of us the paper that we picked up at the front of the room. Let's get your notebook off your desk. Let's get this stuff off your desk. And you can have one notebook to get the binder off your desk. All right. Good. We got almost everybody all set up. So this is political election season. And if you follow the news, if you go online, you're going to constantly see information about what are called the primaries, Democratic primaries, Republican primaries. And there are several candidates involved, not quite as many still as there were before. But one of the things I think about when I am watching on TV and I see people who are in the crowd or who they're giving interviews to and who are defending one of the candidates and saying why they support them is, why do they support that candidate? What is it? What shapes their opinion? And I think that connects nicely to what we're going to be working on, which is point of view and perspective and looking at these documents. But I was talking to Mr. Espandiar yesterday. As you know, he taught AP World History. And he said that when he taught AP World History, he talked about something called corn peg. It's funny, it's easy to remember. Let's get all that off your desk. I don't need that right now. And corn peg is a way to remember what are some of the things that influence people's opinions. Jackie, can you read what each letter of corn peg stands for?
Class, social class, occupation, religion, nationality, political party, ethnicity, and gender.
Yeah, good. So, these candidates, people who support them, their opinions are shaped by some of these factors. So you look at Bernie Sanders, for example. Not all, because we don't speak in absolute statements, but a lot of Bernie Sanders supporters, most of Bernie Sanders supporters, support him because of their class or their occupation. Because Bernie Sanders preaches the message of financial equality, equal taxes for all. He wants to sort of cut down on some of the wealth that the richest people have in America. So people whose jobs don't make a lot of money, or people whose social class isn't as high as some of the other people, tend to support Bernie Sanders. So when they're there and I see them holding up signs, I'm thinking, all right, it's probably because of their class or their occupation. There's another one up there, though, for Bernie Sanders that doesn't fit into one of these letters. Who said that? Yeah, age. There is no letter up there for age, but age, if you wanted to add that in there at the bottom, corn pega, or corn peg, corn page. Age has a big part, too. A lot of Bernie Sanders supporters are young. A lot of them are college students. They learn about new government. They learn about socialism and different philosophies, and they tend to get excited about Bernie Sanders' message. Ted Cruz supporters, what makes them go and hold up signs, what influences their opinion. Again, I don't want to generalize too much, and I avoid absolute statements, but most Ted Cruz supporters support him because of one letter. R. Religion. Ted Cruz is a very strict conservative Christian. And if you listen to him talk, he often talks about his Christian values and how he wants to incorporate them into the government. So a lot of Ted Cruz supporters, when they go and hold up a sign, or if they give an interview and say, yeah, I support Ted Cruz's policies, their religion, their strict conservative Christianity influences what they say about Ted Cruz. So that's what I want us to think about today. We're going to look at some of the sources from the Green Revolution documents. We're going to look at the documents and say, all right, what influences what they're saying here? Which one of these corn peg factors might influence or might cause them to exaggerate some of what they're saying? And then when you go on the news and you're listening to people defend Bernie Sanders or Ted Cruz or Donald Trump, you can say, but they're being impacted right now by a corn peg factor. We'll get to that more later. First, let's do our norms. Exania.
Enter, guys, stop when it's your time to talk. There's a time and place for laughing and talking. Everyone stay seated and the brothers.
Yeah, very good. And don't be interrupting blurters. All right, announcements. Got some good news. Tomorrow's DBQ. Tomorrow's DBQ is not postponed. However, tomorrow's DBQ, instead of what I had told you before, which is that you were going to get new documents, and you were going to have to do them for homework, tomorrow's DBQ is going to be based on the Green Revolution documents. So it's going to be based on documents that you've already been studying for the last few days. What that means is that you pay attention and you work hard today, it'll help you earn points for the DBQ that you're going to write tomorrow. If you need extra help on organizing your groups or on your thesis, Jasmine, why don't you sit actually next to Joshua? It's good exercise. Lunch tutorials today if you need extra help in organizing your groups for your DBQ. And finally, last but certainly not least, your review books. You're going to get spring break homework from me on Friday. And a lot of your homework is going to be based on that review book, on 5 Steps to a 5. Here it is. You got to get it ordered or else you won't be able to do the homework. Some of you already given me money and I've ordered it for you. If you have any problems, like I said, you want to give me some money and I can order it for you, see me during lunch. All right. So that brings us to the first document that we're going to analyze together. Maybe. Nope. Here it is. All right, good. Point of view analysis, corn peg. Alex, could you please read the instructions at the top of the page? And Alex, let's remember our classroom norms. I appreciate your dedication to sanitation, but we don't get up in the middle of class. Go for it, Alex.
Today you will practice analyzing the point of view and DBQ document. Like you saw in the do now, every document was created by a person that has a corn peg factor that influences their perspective.
Thanks, Alex. Good, right. So when we look at these documents, we want to remember that there are corn peg factors. There are things that are going to influence what they're saying in their document. First thing I want you to do, because some of you might not have gotten to document 10, or you read document 10 over the weekend and you've forgotten what it said. I'm going to give you 1 minute right now to silently annotate document number 10 from the Green Revolution. After 1 minute, we'll bring it back together. No. Do you have your Green Revolution documents?
Yeah.
Where are they? Okay, that's what you need right now. We're going to be using them today.
I have a pen around my essays. They're my essays.
Okay, but right now, I don't have them with me right now, but right now you need these in front of you. on the paper, so if you want to read it on here, but it's basically the same information. Hey, can you put that away for me? All right. One word that I put a box around on here that I want you to do the same thing right now on your paper. And before I say that, Edu's looking at the documents in the packet. That's fine. I know the document might be a little bit blurry as I tried to cut and paste it and put it on that page. So if you want to use the document packet or you can use the paper I gave you. I want you to put a box around the word that I put a box around, Joshua, which is what? Rural. Joshua, do you remember what rural means? All right. Who can help him out? Cameron. So there's not a lot of community. It's the countryside. So when we picture a rural place, what do you see a lot of, Cameron? Open fields, farm or two. How about, the only thing I'd correct, you see probably a lot of farms in a rural area. Most people that live in rural places, who can raise their hand and tell me, how do they make a living? Most people, or a lot of people who live in rural places, actually make a living what? Good, agriculture. So, Amanda, can you read the source of this document?
Guatemalan National Coordination Committee of Indigenous Peasants.
Keep going.
A rural labor organization in Latin America, official statement November 2006.
Yes, good. So they are the Guatemalan National Coordinating Committee of Indigenous Peasants. So, I've been to Guatemala, and I've seen Mayan culture. So let me tell you something about what I observed about the Mayans. So the Mayans, if you remember from last year, don't worry about that now. Finish that later. Let's focus on this. The Mayans have a very unique and traditional culture that goes back hundreds or even thousands of years. And when I was there, I went for a hike through what they called a Mayan village. And what you notice as you were walking through this village, there were very few houses. They were very far spread apart. They didn't have electricity, their houses. When they cooked on a fire, on a flame with a big clay pot. And they didn't speak Spanish. I might get this wrong, but I think the language is called Quechua, which is no, that's not Quechua. They spoke an indigenous Mayan language. Our tour guide spoke to them in that language as well, but I couldn't speak to them because they didn't speak Spanish. And their dress was very unique. It was very traditional Mayan dress. They made a living by growing crops and then going to a market and selling it. Now, that market was up at the top of a big winding hill. And in order to get from where I was hiking up to the market, where I was going next, I took a bus. It was like a 20-minute bus ride that was going like this. It was very steep. It was dangerous. Those women, though, did not take the bus to get up to the market. How did they get there, Linda? They walked. They walked up this enormous hill to get to the market. And I saw them when I got off the bus, I see them walking up the hill with these baskets on their heads, casually walking up there to go and sell at the market. Why? Why would they do that? Why not take the bus? Why didn't they take the bus? It's their lifestyle, it's their traditions. And they feel like this new technology betrays their traditions. For hundreds and thousands of years, they've walked up the hill to sell their food. They're not going to start taking the bus. That would be betraying their traditions. So keep that in mind when analyzing this document, that a lot of indigenous groups, their traditions are sacred. So I'm going to show you how I would analyze this document, analyze the point of view of this document, following 3 steps. The first thing I'm going to do is here where it says step 1. I'm going to write down the information from the source. And let me talk you through it first, and then I'll show you a completed example. So the first thing I'm going to do, it's important to consider the perspective of, and then I go to Guatemalan National Coordinating Committee of Indigenous Peasants. The next thing I do is I think about which corn peg factor is going to influence what this committee is saying. There's actually a few here. It's kind of a blend. In a way, it's their occupation. This committee's purpose, this committee's occupation, is to defend the rights and to defend the traditions of indigenous peasants in Guatemala. But also, besides occupation, part of it is their nationality and ethnicity. Now this is tough because there is no official Mayan nation. There's no Mayan flag at the United Nations. But the Mayans do sort of have a nation. I mean, they have this group of people who share a common group of characteristics. So it's a combination of nationality and ethnicity that the committee, their occupation, is defending that nationality and ethnicity. Maria, you had a question?
Can you make any of the cultures that is not there?
Yeah, so culture's not there, right? So I would say culture is maybe, you could connect culture to a lot of these, maybe nationality and ethnicity. So the bottom line is, what they are trying to do is protect indigenous peasants. Indigenous peasants do not want modern technology. So therefore, they're going to do whatever they can to be anti any new innovation that destroys Mayan traditions. So when the Green Revolution says, hey, here's new technology to use for their farming, here's new seeds, those indigenous peasants don't want to use them. They don't want to ride the bus. They want to do things the way they've been doing them for hundreds and thousands of years. So they're going to be very anti any new farming methods. So let me show you how I put all of that together into this example. And thank you for your patience. Ashley, can you read what I wrote in the first box? Yes, I want you to write that entire name of the source and write the document number. Then, this is an easy step. Well, I shouldn't say easy. This is not a very labor-intensive step. You don't have to write anything. All you have to do is circle. I thought when this committee makes this statement about the Green Revolution, which of these factors is influencing their opinion? And I said it was a combination of occupation, nationality, and ethnicity. So finally, I put it all together into this analysis of how corn peg could influence their statement. So Jackie, could you read what I wrote there?
However, we must remember that this organization represents indigenous Mayan peasants, and it is possible that it is exaggerating the negative effects of the Green Revolution on their indigenous seed so that they can diminish support for these new farming methods and preserve the culture of the indigenous peasants.
Yeah. Perhaps the new technology is not destroying the native seeds like they said. But their whole thing is they want to diminish support for the Green Revolution, and they want to preserve or keep sacred these ancient Mayan traditions. Oh, good, you already annotated that document. How come you wrote down nationality, social class?
Yeah.
Well, yes. So, I mean, the thing is, like, you could argue that in a a way, right, social class, they want you could sort of connect it to social class if you wanted to. I think these are the strongest, though. About 30 more seconds to finish cutting that down. All right. We're going to try one on your own. We're going to make sure we follow these 3 steps. Take about 20 seconds and turn to the person sitting next to you first, though. What are the 3 steps that we're going to follow here to analyze the point of view or perspective of one of these documents? First thing you do is what? Right, what is step 1?
Transition plus bring in the raw / info about the problem.
In your own words, what does that mean?
Like, talk about the person who is talking about the document. Like the person who actually wrote the document or said the document.
Okay, good. Right, write down the information about the person who wrote the document, then what?
Then you choose which factors influence like, the document.
All right, good. All right, very good, Zania. But I want to hear from 3 people: Cameron, Jackie, and Joshua. Cameron, what's the first thing you're going to do when you're following this protocol? Yeah, in your own words, what does that mean? It's simpler than that. In that first sentence in step 1, it's simpler than that. Jackie? What do you mean, who?
Who is the perspective?
Okay, whose perspective are you what? Good. First step is whose are you considering? Are you analyzing? Good, Alex. All right, Cameron, I'll go back to you for step 2. Step 2, what are you going to do?
Just choose which of the corn peg points of view that it falls under. The influence factors that are positive.
Say it again. Which of the corn peg factors?
Influence the point of view.
All right. Which of the corn peg factors might influence their point of view? And then finally, the last thing, Joshua.
How the corn peg influence explain how the corn peg might affect it.
Okay, yeah. Explain then how that corn peg factor might have affected what? Yes, how it influences their perspective. And ultimately, guys, this is the key question. Joshua, can you read that?
How does the corn peg influence what they say?
So how does that corn peg factor ultimately influence what they're saying in the document? Cameron? Those are 2 good questions. Can you say them a little louder so that everyone can hear? Because I could barely hear you.
Do we have to do it for every document or every group? And if we do, then how do we put that in our writing style? How do we put that in the order, which is supposed to go?
1 per group. So you don't have to do it for every document, but you have to do, if it's 1 per group, how many total? 3. And PPEPA, right? Where does point of view analysis fall in PPEPA? Huh? Preview, explain, preview, paraphrase, explain, point of view. And I will give you a cheat sheet tomorrow to make sure you have that order. All right, before you get started on the next one, let's take a look together at this source, or at this document. Could you read this document for me, please? As we flip the page in our packet. Okay, Jasmine. It's a tough name to pronounce, but you got it, I think.
Ooh. Chindabarium?
Yep.
Submanium?
Yeah, good. Thanks for taking a risk on that one. That's good. Keep reading. What is it about him?
India's Minister for Food and Agriculture from 1964 to 1967.
All right, great. Thank you, Jasmine. I don't think I could pronounce it any better. Chidambaram Subramaniam. India's minister. I put a box around the word minister because this is a word that I think you guys are going to misinterpret. Maybe not. But when you hear the word minister in this country, at least me, the first thing I think of is a church and a priest. To me, is a synonym for priest. However, in almost every other English-speaking country in the world, minister has also a different meaning. You may have read Harry Potter. You may have read all of them. And you know that in that book, there's different ministers and ministries. There's the ministry of dark arts. There's the minister of magic. No, they're not teachers. So if you work for a ministry, or if you're a minister, that's another way of saying that you have an official job in the government. So a minister is somebody who's like a government official in almost every other country that speaks English except the United States. So I like how about 75% of you are writing that down. If you're a minister, that means you work for the government. What department of the government does he work for? Food and agriculture. So the Green Revolution is going to be something that he cares about. Yes?
So if we interpret minister like the rest of the world, so you'll be a minister? So?
No, I'm not a government official. I guess I work, the government, public schools are sort of connected to the government. But like if I work for the mayor's office, or if I work for the state of Texas, or if I worked like in the federal government, in Congress, like I worked in like one of the branches of the government, then I could maybe be considered a minister. No, teachers are not. But there is a minister of education in a lot of these countries. All right. One thing I want you to know about government documents. When a document is created either by or for the government, it is almost always going to make it seem like the government is successful. Almost every time you see a document produced by a government official or on behalf of a government official, they're going to make it seem like that branch of the government is extremely successful and that what they did was positive. Why do you think that is? Ashley? Right, they want to make it seem like they're doing what's best for the people. What do you mean by that?
Like, they're getting money out of it, so, like, it's their job, so maybe if it's bad, they would kick it out, so.
Yeah, they're getting money from who?
People who buy it?
It's a good guess, but if you're the government,
Oh, it doesn't, I don't know.
They're getting money from the people, so if they don't sound like they're doing something good for the people are going to be like, oh, you don't.
what do you call that when the people gives the government money?
Taxes.
Right, they're getting tax money, so if they aren't making it seem like they're successful, the people aren't going to support their programs anymore. So keep that in mind. One last thing before I let you analyze the point of view here of this document. How does Mr. Subramaniam get evaluated? So when somebody looks at his job performance and says, Mr. Subraniam, you've done a great job this year, what are they looking at to see how successful he is? Like for me, they're going to look at how successful you guys are. Cameron? Again, Cameron, it's an awesome answer. I'm just having a hard time hearing you. Can you say it again? Helping to grow agriculture, managing food, and also managing who? Because he's not out there on the farms every day probably planting. Cameron? Who else? What else is he in charge of besides, you're right. What do you call those people? Well, no, they're not slaves. Farmers. Good. You also look at how productive the farmers are to see how productive he is. All right, I'm going to give you 5 minutes. Yes, Jasmine. Jasmine, that is what we call a loaded question. That's difficult to answer, and I don't have a very short answer to that. But the short answer, I guess, is no. One thing, guys, before you get started, eyes up here for a second. I'm going to be coming around and coding your paper with symbols. If I put a check, that means that you're doing well, keep it up. If I put a C, that means you did not correctly identify the corn peg factor, and go back and look at it again. And if I put a dot, that means that last part, the analysis. You need to do a better job of explaining how the corn peg factor influences their analysis. So 5 minutes. Push you a little bit further. The government, yes, but specifically what part of the government? And how does it help him? Good job adding all this information too. You always do a good job at that. Make sure you include all this biographical information that's there. Yeah, but this is the big one, right? Because he works for the government. The big one is here. Yeah, social class a little bit, but I think occupation is the big one. You gotta add all that information about him, right? Really read what you're writing here, Simon. It's mostly occupation. Since you already said that here, that's fine. You could say it again, but to save time, you could say he works for the government. Maybe instead of saying he isn't telling the truth, you say he's exaggerating, or the successes, or something like that. You don't want to phrase it like that. I don't know so much about political party. I think it's mostly just occupation. Oh, good, it is, good, good. Yeah.
And the
Department. Yeah. Of the people in implementing the Green Revolution. So it means he works for the government, right? So because he works for the government, how is that going to influence what he's saying here? How does if he's saying that the farmers are being successful in the new Green Revolution technology, how does that help him? So a couple things. What is he exaggerating? And then, yes, but connect it more to his job. Like his occupation, right? Yeah, good. Yes, and I'll push you on one more thing. What does that do for his reputation and his ministry, his job? So because of that, what might he be doing? All right, looks like so you guys are definitely on the right track, but we're stuck on a few things. So I want to show you a few examples from the last class. I want us to evaluate them together, and we'll look at some of the strengths and things that need to improve, and then we'll go back and look at another example together. But before we do that, I want to give you 1 minute to share with the person sitting next to you. Take about 1 minute and share your approach and what you wrote for the analysis. So Amanda, maybe go move over next to Zania. Take 1 minute, share with the person sitting next to you, and we'll go over these, and then I'll show you some exemplars. Yeah, why would he do that, though? Why would he be like, oh, these farmers are so awesome. They're the pioneers of the Green Revolution. If it wasn't for them, the Green Revolution would have failed. Who's in charge of those farmers?
Where did you write that?
So if he's saying how great they are, then that means that who's going to get credit for that? The farmers to a certain extent, but who also will get credit for it? He's basically in charge of all the farmers. All right. Let's take a look at a couple examples from the other classes. And let's try to identify some of the strengths and things that need to be improved. And then we're going to try another example together. Edu, if you could please do us a favor and turn off the lights. All right. One thing I want to point out, a couple of you did take a shortcut on this. If you look at the first box, the first step, remember you have to write down all of the biographical information there. And this student did that. He's India's Minister for Food and Agriculture in document 5. Occupation, I agree, is the main corn peg factor. Some of you had mentioned social class, and you could argue that, yeah, that's connected, but I think occupation's the big one. Let's take a look. Yes? Political parties are connected to the government, Edu, but it doesn't mention that he belongs to a specific party. So if it had said he belongs to the Liberal Party and he's arguing against the Conservative Party, then yes. But all this is saying is that he works for a department in the government. Alex, could you read what the student wrote for the second step, the analysis part? Or sorry, that's the third step.
However, we must remember that Subramaniam works for the government, and it is possible that he is exaggerating the Green Revolution's technology so that he can seem successful when the technology is helping out with the Green Revolution and agriculture production.
There are some things here that this student did that are good, that followed our protocol, but I think there's one thing that needs to be fixed in each of these two parts. So I'd like you to turn to the person sitting next to you. In this part here where he talks about it's possible that he's exaggerating, and then this part here, what do you think this student should improve? And again, remember, how is Mr. Subramaniam evaluated? Irvine? How is Mr. Subramaniam, the Minister of Food and Agriculture, how is he evaluated? How do they determine if he's successful or not? Yeah, if agriculture, or if the farmers do a good job. So take about 1 minute. What are some things that could be improved in this example?
Looking at it, you have to really know what a minister is. Like, you just go around and back with, just what the document says. You have to know what a minister does and, how the farmer went to actually understand.
Can you share what you said about the technology to the class?
For mine, I haven't finished, but I put that he might lied about it.
Not lying. He might be exaggerating.
Okay, but why couldn't he like? Because maybe he wasn't there to know if they took it easy. So.
Well, no, he is there. He's observing them. He's the one who's in charge of them. He might not be the one every day going and farming, but he has to go and do observations. Yeah. Let's bring it back. Rebecca, I like what you said, what I heard you saying about this part. This student said it's possible he's exaggerating the Green Revolution's technology. And what did you say?
I said he's not exaggerating about that. He's actually exaggerating about the people's success, farmers' success.
The farmer's success using the what? Yeah, he's not. So what he's exaggerating, he's not saying how awesome the technology is. He's giving credit to the people who are using the technology and saying, hey, these farmers are the pioneers of using this technology. Very good, Rebecca. How about the second part? I thought he could have done a little bit of better job here of stating how exaggerating the success of the farmers, how successful they are, would help him. Simon?
For my information, I put that the people of India will support the Green Revolution and help contribute to it, which will make Subramaniam richer, which, I guess, one of the reasons why we would have the respective ministers.
Get some more support from the people of India. You said help him get rich.
Yeah, I know it's not true.
I don't even say it's so much about him getting rich. It's about him getting what?
More support, more power.
Credit, power, support. It's all about making it seem like he's doing a great job. So by him saying, hey, the farmers here in the Punjab are doing such a good job implementing this technology, that makes it seem like he's doing a good job implementing this technology. Let me show you another example to contrast this one with that one. It's a little bit difficult to read. Zinnia, can you read that? This part says, however.
However, we must remember that Subramaniam works for the government of India, and it is possible that he's exaggerating the
Work ethic.
of the farmers in Punjab.
So-
So that the minister, is that minister?
Yep.
Minister can get the recognition for the success of the Green Revolution.
Or recognition
Oh, recognition.
for the success of the Green Revolution. So now, he might not be making any of that up. But the point is, we're saying that because of his occupation, because of that corn peg, that he might be exaggerating how hardworking these farmers are because he's the one who's in charge of those farmers, and that will give him the recognition. All right, can we get the lights back on? You guys are going to now try. We're now going to try another example on our own. Same idea here. Now we're going to document 6. And remember what I said about documents produced either by government officials or on behalf of government officials. So I'm going to give you about 5 minutes. See how you did in the last example. All right, good. All right, good. I mean, yes, you could connect it to this as well. But, well, keep going. I'll see how you do. But I think this is the big one here. Her occupation is her husband's occupation. You know what I mean? I mean, yes, you could connect it to this too. But I think that's the big one. You skipped a step.
Because I'm still thinking about it. What is the... Would this be a social class occupation because she's the wife of what?
That means that that's her. That means that that's her occupation too, right? It's her husband's occupation, so that she's dependent on her husband's occupation. Hey, let me pause you for 1 second because I noticed something that a lot of you, and you can argue that social class is involved here for sure. But remember the story I told you about the library was going to be closed, and I went and spoke in front of the city council.
Yes, we remember.
No, but thank you for remembering. That was my occupation, even though it wasn't my occupation. Right? It was my mom's occupation. But her occupation impacted me. That was how my family, well, my dad had an occupation too, but the corn peg factor that influenced me and my opinion on that library closing, or not, was based on my mom's occupation, which you could say is also my occupation. Now, could you connect that to social class as well? Yes. But I think it's a stronger argument if you say it's the occupation. Go ahead. Finish if you haven't finished yet. more about her husband's job too. Yeah, and that he's seen and he is viewed as being and that he's successful. Yeah, that's good, Maria.
Like the first one I put, I liked it, but then I kind of like thought about social class more, and I figured like maybe they live in like affluent neighborhoods since they're like, you know, government officials and stuff. So they like their perspective is limited because they live in like
Yeah.
affluent neighborhoods.
No, sir. You could certainly say that instead of like we're focusing today on how somebody might be exaggerating, you could also look at it as well. She might not have the whole picture because she's only looking at it from the perspective of the wife of a government official. So yeah, no, you could definitely connect it to social class too. But this explanation here for occupation is good. Why would she do that? Why would she be so? It's possible she might have seen, but she might, even though she's seen, she might be exaggerating how successful some of these farmers are and how rich they're getting, and think, why would she do that? The city of Mexico. What is it that she's exaggerating? This part is good.
She's exaggerating the things that the government officials do for to live.
Not exactly. Look at it again. What is she? She's exaggerating. Think about what the agriculture office is supposed to be doing, and think about what the document says that people are doing in Mexico. Yeah. It's talking about how agriculture is making people rich. Why would she maybe be exaggerating about how rich people are getting through agriculture? Right, so but she's not exaggerating the city of Mexico. What's she exaggerating? Close. No. Yeah. What she saw. What did she see? I would be explicit and explain that. What did she see? She saw all this wealth through what? How did people get rich? Yeah. And how does that help? But how does that help if you think about occupation? How does that maybe help her and her husband? If she's making agriculture, if she's exaggerating how rich people are getting through agriculture, how does that help her? All right, give me 1 second. Yeah, that's awesome, Irving. Good. I'm going to move you over to the master column. Tomorrow you are. Why, though? Why would she do that? I'm going to show you a few examples. Jackie, so you almost got it, but you want to think like why would she be talking about how successful the Green Revolution is? It has to do with occupation. Yeah. Perfect. All right. I'm going to show you a couple examples. Overall, great work. And I noticed a big improvement from the first one to the last one. So I worked with Irvine on the first one, and there were a couple of things that she missed. On this one, she had it perfectly. That's the whole idea. That's why we practice. I'm going to show you. Yeah, you too, you do. Actually, I saw a big improvement in almost all of them. And a lot of people, you had a good one from the beginning. I want to show you a couple examples from period 2. Here is the first one. And Edu, I'm going to ask you to turn the lights off again. One thing I want to point out, this student circled class, occupation, and nationality. And you could argue all of those things. You could argue that it's about Mexican pride and showing how great the Mexican Agricultural Office is. I think the big one here, though, is occupation. Frida, can you read that? Or is it too blurry? She? line of work. Yeah, so maybe the whole idea is her husband's office and his line of work will get more support. Alex, what did you say here instead of how great and rich the agriculture is in Mexico? You said she could be exaggerating the success of what? Yeah, another way to say it is how successful the Green Revolution has been. So I thought this student did a great job of sort of saying, okay, this is why she might be exaggerating. It's going to help her husband's job. Let me show you one more. Jasmine, can you read this one for us, please? The however part. So she added something in there at the end that this is an interview with the United Nations, and maybe she's exaggerating so that her husband will seem successful, but the United Nations will continue to support the Green Revolution in Mexico. We have about 30 seconds. I have one check for understanding question for you before you pack up. First question here, I'd like you to discuss that. 20 seconds with the person sitting next to you. In general, how can cornpeg influence someone's opinion? So how can cornpeg help you to analyze how someone's opinion is influenced? Edu, can you turn the lights on, please? Real quick, before you go. Yes, I want your papers. Before you go, Jackie, can you give us a quick summary again? What does cornpeg stand for?
Social class, occupation, religion, nationality, ethnicity,
Political.
ethnicity, and gender.
Now, Jackie, how do those factors help us when we're analyzing perspective or point of view?
Because it can change somebody's
point of view on
Edu?
It can change somebody's point of view on the thing if they relate to it with the other person.
The way they say it and how they say it.
Yes, and Alex, if you have a seat.
The way they say it and how they say it.
Yes, so when we're looking at the, very well phrased, Zania, if you look at how or why they say something, you look back at their cornpeg and say, well, this is why they said that, because of this cornpeg. Are you going to be graded on this? I'm definitely looking these over, but more importantly, tomorrow you're going to be writing 3 point of view analyses, 3 point of view. You're going to have to analyze the point of view of 3 different documents in your essay, so that's why today's practice was so valuable. All right, I'm here during an hour during lunch. Please stack those up in the back. Make sure your names are on them. Good job. Huh? Yes.